there's just so much going on. Let me just very briefly go over a little bit. As you know, late last night, the Senate voted 50 to 50. We needed 60 votes. We didn't get it. We didn't get one Republican vote. We lost a few Democratic votes on a very, very modest jobs program, and that would be to provide $35 billion to state and local governments to prevent layoffs of teachers, police officers, and firefighters. A very modest proposal, and the bill was going to be paid for by imposing a surtax of all of 0.5% on incomes of over $1 million. We could not get one Republican vote to protect teachers, police officers, firemen from being laid off and losing significant numbers of jobs. And that just tells you, I think, the absolute bankruptcy of where the Republicans are coming from in terms of job creation. Tom, they have absolutely nothing to say on this issue. 16% of our workforce is unemployed or underemployed, 25 million Americans, and the only solution that the Republicans have, if you can believe it, I'm not kidding, is more tax breaks for billionaires, more deregulation of Wall Street, more unfettered free trade so we can lose even more jobs to China, Mexico, and other developing countries. That's their jobs proposal. So when we talk about preventing cops and firemen and teachers from being laid off, they're not there. More importantly, in my view, when we talk about creating millions of jobs, rebuilding our infrastructure, roads, bridges, water systems, rail, public transportation, they're not even in the same room. They're not in the same world. They are prepared to allow our infrastructure to collapse. China invests 9% in infrastructure, Europe 5%, we 2.2%, and we can't get any Republican votes to create jobs rebuilding our infrastructure or transforming our energy system. So that's what you got in terms of jobs. In terms of the Fed, I think many listeners may know that as part of the financial reform bill, the so-called Dodd-Frank bill, we got a provision in there which did a number of things. It provided an audit of the Fed during the Wall Street collapse period, 3-year period. And we learned from that the Fed made $16 trillion in revolving loans, low interest, zero interest loans to every major financial institution in this country, many major corporations, central banks all over the world, and wealthy individuals. Another provision that we had placed in that bill called for a report from the GAO on conflicts of interest at the Fed. In other words, when you have, for example, the New York Fed, which is largely composed of people from financial institutions who are supposedly regulating themselves. So you have people from large banks sitting on the New York Fed regulating large banks. Some of us think it is fairly obvious that there are major conflicts of interest. The GAO published their report the other day, indicated their concerns. And what we are going to do with that is we are put together a commission of some of the leading progressive economists in this country. Joe Stiglitz is a Nobel Prize winner. Jeff Sachs, done a great job in many respects. Bob Reich, former Secretary of Labor. Jamie Galbraith, Lawrence Michel, Naomi Prinz, a number of leading progressive economists who are going to work with me to help me form legislation which will make the Fed, which is an enormously powerful institution, an agency that works for ordinary people rather than just for the large financial institutions on Wall Street. And I consider this to be very, very important. I'm not quite sure how we're going to lay this thing out, whether we'll have hearings or town meetings on it or whatnot. But it is, to me, we're in the process of formulating that now, but it is a big deal because we're tackling the Fed, an institution of enormous power and very often functioning in secrecy. We held a hearing last week on the recession and older Americans. That was actually the early part of this week. And what we found, not too surprisingly, is that in the midst of this recession, It's not just a lot of elderly people are hurting. Millions of seniors have seen a decline in their standard of living. Unemployment is very, very high, has doubled since 2007 for seniors. And if you can believe this, in the lower percentile, lower 20 percentile, the bottom 1/5, you have the average income of seniors in that percentile is $7,500, Tom. Can you believe that?
That's, I don't see how you could live on $7,500
Well, you can't.
a year.
And you can't live on that. And those people are highly dependent on affordable housing, government programs, food stamps,
yeah.
LIHEAP.
Jeff Sessions wants to cut now.
That's right. And those are programs that our Republican friends want to cut back on. Now, the good news for seniors is that the Social Security Administration announced for the first time in 3 years that there would be a COLA increase, 3.6%. I believe that's long overdue. At our hearing, we had a panelist, an expert on this issue, testifying to the effect that the current formulation as to how we determine COLAs is inadequate and understates the purchasing needs of seniors. So what we want to do is get a better index to determine the real inflationary costs that seniors experience, which is a lot higher, I believe, than the current formulation. In any case, there will be a 3.6% COLA increase, which is important for seniors and veterans, other people on Social Security. In terms of Social Security, in terms of Medicare, we continue the fight to make sure that there are no cuts in Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid. We are in the midst of a severe recession. Social Security hasn't contributed a nickel to our deficit. We've got to strengthen it. We've got legislation in to do just that. The idea of raising the eligibility age of Medicare from 65 to 67, totally unconscionable. We're going to fight that. And we've been doing what we can with the super committee to make sure that they do not end up with a product that hurts working families or the elderly or the sick.